Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. Let's see who comes in and hangs out with me for a little bit tonight. But in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And today was definitely an inside day. We're in the midst of it's like an Alberta Clipper, if you don't know that. I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. We get pretty cold here. We get some pretty interesting weather. And today is one of those days where the weather is really interesting. The snow is blowing absolutely everywhere. It was only minus 15 Celsius, but it feels like minus 30 Celsius. The wind is blowing so hard out there, so hard that they actually closed quite a few schools here in Manitoba, right? We keep those kids safe, right? And again, Mother Nature is one of those aspects of this world that we don't have a handle on, that we can't control. We are much better at kind of predicting what the weather is going to be like. I'm only saying that because, they very rarely get it right. I get really excited about dynamic weather. Call it dynamic weather, wild red weather, crazy weather. I love that crazy town when it comes to Mother Nature. Not to the point where anybody is going to get hurt or, right, their home is going to fall in on them because of the wind. But it is exciting. I do find it exciting. I connect with it. It fills me and rejuvenates me and excites me. And I don't know if there's anything wrong in feeling that way. What came to my mind is Forrest Gump. You remember that scene when they're out shrimp fishing and they have that great big crazy storm going on, and that guy's way up in the mast and he's just howling and laughing. It was more like a challenge for him. But in that challenge, he reveled in it 100%. So if you hear the wind in the background, I just had a bath. I am steaming pretty hard here. So I had to open up the window a little bit and get some fresh air. I may close it if I find it get a little bit chilly because the wind is blowing. And if the wind bothers you, you guys, just let me know. I will close the window and turn off the heat instead. I can hear the heat going here. That's something I should have done at the same time. But then this place would have cooled off too much, too fast. And then I would have had to jump up and readjust things as I'm doing my live show. I hope everybody had a great week, right? We're going into the weekend now. Saturdays, I don't normally post online. It's the one day of the week that I stay with myself. I give myself that rest, whether or not I'm going to take in content or, when I say take in content and take in the lessons, it's only because, well, I take in the lessons for the lessons, but I also take in the lessons to get perspectives on other people, other creators, other people that are in the same topics and in the same categories that I touch base on. And I find it fascinating. And I don't know if I'm particularly looking for the quirks and for the trip ups and little mistakes, but I'm also looking for the wow, I never thought of it that way. Oh my goodness, is that what that is? And then not take it as a truth, but on days like Saturdays where I am spending that time with myself, that I get that whole day to be in the topics that interest me, to sit in and I sit in every day, but to really sit in a way, can you hear that wind? It's just crazy. Like the window is, I don't know if you guys can hear that. It's just whistling out there. It's moving so fast that that snow that is blowing, if you don't have your face covered, you're probably going to come home with a few pock marks in your face. That's how hard it's blowing. Tonight I was just tidying up. I've been working on my marketplace and doing some listing and some sales that I wanted to get done, and I'm finding it fun, and it's keeping me busy, and it's making me money. I mean, within the past 24 hours we've made like $300. I think that's pretty good, and those were on just smaller items, right? Nothing super huge. Oh no, I had some trim that I sold. I got $200 for that too, so I thought that was pretty good. But then, I had some dinner, had a bath, sat here, sitting in on one of my favorite people. He's absolutely amazing. If I tell you, if I was super rich and I had money to throw out to actually sit down and have a conversation with, he would probably be one of them. He's also very much a realist in what he does. But at the same time, he's playing out his own story. And I look to him as, when I said, I'm paying attention in the presentation. Lots of times it's the cameras and the gear. Sometimes it's in, what they're promoting in the descriptions, whether they have websites or courses, how they present themselves visually to their well, interested parties, their followers, right? And it's not that, I'm doing it to copy them in any way. I wish I did copy them, but I can only be me, and I can only be at the point of where I am at. And I also have different perspectives. I'm a different person altogether. And I am very, mm, what is it? I have a flavor for content, uh, in different types of thought leadership out there. And it surprises me sometimes, that there are a few people that you would never think that I would actually sit down and be a student, be a spectator, taking the lessons from myself, from some of the characters that I do. But you know what? It's not what's on the outside, right? It's what's in the inside. And because we all grow up, if you guys hang out with me, hello, Eugene. Hello, Eugene. Thank you so much for coming in. If you've been hanging out with me for any length of time, um, you would know that I am non judgmental, that I don't pay attention to how somebody looks, how somebody acts, unless it's in disrespect or they're hurting somebody else or they're putting somebody down. But for the most part, those lessons that I do search out for myself, it comes from those hearts that actually play along the same base values as I do. And again, like I said, being non judgmental and um, not judging somebody by how they look. And like I said, I could never meet up to some of the maybe standards that some of these people that I immerse myself in their content by. But at the same time, I have to respect that maybe some of those qualities I have, right? Because you got to remember, lots of times we beat ourselves up for, maybe our accents, how we pronounce things. For me, I was such a bad speller. And to this very day, right, I'm much better than I used to be. Thank you to Grammarly and the repetitiveness of course correcting on those spelling errors that I make. But this is the age that we live in, that we have these extensions and apps that help us. And at the same time, in helping us, I would have to also say it's hurting us in some ways too, because we become reliant on these gifts that the world has to offer us in this age of AI learning, right? The 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 way that we move now, kids are pretty good spellers, right? But at the same time, in that short what do they call it, shorthand, right, and in the slang and in texting and stuff, that we're not getting pronunciations and we're not getting spelling right. But at the same time, I have to say, we all understand, we get these messages, we get these texts, but the art of writing, I'm going to have to say, I am curious as to whether or not this is something that will carry on, or will these be lost gifts, right? Like calligraphy. Is that what you said? The fancy handwriting. That lots of times we're using AI to pick up the slack, and it makes us weak, right? It makes it so that we don't have to do the job ourselves, right? It's like, but this is innovation, and this has been going on for so long. Like even after the Second World War, when the wives wanted their fancy technical kitchens, and the microwave came out, and then the cell phones, and like so many things have just gone beyond our understanding, that we don't even try to understand them anymore. We just use them, right? And if it breaks, well, throw it away and you go get another one, right? Like I did with my with my speakers for my computer. But my computer is up and running again. It's running amazing. The speakers are doing good, right? My sister is happy because she was really disillusioned about what was going on with her eBay store, right? In sending merchandise and being an eBay seller and sending that stuff to the States, and all the tariff stuff going on. And she's been pretty sad about that. And for me, I understand, once you get yourself in that negative, it's really hard to pull yourself out. And the more negative that you get, the more open you leave yourself, right? And we leave yourself open, right? It's only in those joyous moments that the good can come into our lives. So if you're miserable, the only thing you're leaving yourself open to is what's comfortable in your misery. And that is only the misery. That is only the negative. So you got to find the bright spot in everything, even in those small disasters and the things that trip us up in our life. And can you imagine people who have illnesses, like serious illnesses, maybe life threatening illnesses, and how they feel in that, right? And you wonder, like, how can they recover, right? And it is in that optimism. I am 100% positive in that. You guys hear me say all the time, right? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, right? Whistle while you work, right? Singing in the rain, right? Smile when you want to cry, right? It doesn't mean to be ungenuine in that you can explain to people why you're smiling. I'm not having the best of day, but we're making the best of it, right? And it's that positive attitude that you can get yourself back onto the top of the pile, and maybe not to be so wide open in your happiness that just joy comes to you instantly, though that does happen. It has happened to me, right? And a prime example of that is, they say a lot of times that people who wake up to some of the ideas, who wake up, right? They wake up through the traumas in their life. They wake up by the big wake up call of the hairy, scary, the frightening, the disillusion, the giving up. For myself, it was a joyous moment. Like, it was absolutely joyous and happy. And you know what? That works just as well as the negative. And not only does it work just as well, it works better, right? Even the negative loves the light, right? It just doesn't get that opportunity to touch it very often. And, right? That's why we look for examples out there, right? Of how to go about making these little bits of progress in our life when we do feel down and out, when we feel hopeless and right and disillusioned with life. It is in doing your very best, right? It doesn't mean not to be sad, not to be angry. But if you can find the progress in that, for me, myself, too, lots of times when I managed store, things would go badly. And in the moment, you have to um, designate, you have to get yourself out of that situation, possibly get your company out of that situation. You don't have time to be negative, even though you're in the moment, you're in that negative moment. But, in that moment, you can be positive. You can say, we're going to fix this. Let's just get this done. Johnny, you do this. Sally, you do this, right? And then you get yourself past that, right? You get yourself past that potential, right? Catastrophe. And you could go, oh, wow. And then you think about it and you go, that was amazing. High five, everybody. Thank yous. Maybe run to the coffee shop and buy everybody coffees, right? Depending on what the situation is. But we can find the positive in the negative, and that's the truth. Just as much as the negative can move into our lives, the positive can move into our lives just by our own intent and the recognition, right, of the moment that you're having. You let those scary moments take you away, and it's for lots of people, it's really right. It's really scary having those moments. But for myself, the little trick, you just go into speed mode, right? You go into fix it mode. You go into I got this mode. And you repeat to yourself, everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. And you do that also for everybody else, because when you're in that mix, you need as much help as you can, right? Because you're doing it fast. You need to get back on track as fast as you can. You bring all those resources that are surround you, whether they're the lessons, right? Whether it's, those resources that we have along our tool belt. Sometimes it is the people that we, have around us that support us and we support them. And that's the idea. You get what you give. And I am very grateful that I have people in my life who live the same way, but at the same time, right? We can only control our own actions, our own thoughts, our own emotions. And, right, it's not everybody around us that is going to follow suit in that, right? Lots of times people are in a negative state. And again, being in that negative state is not going to serve you, and it's not going to serve anybody else who might come along and really want to help you. But because you're just like, because you're so, right? Because you're so, what am I going to do? Right? That people just sometimes don't want to be around that because it brings them into that negative state. But like I said, if you can go into that mix of hairy scary with that attitude that everything is going to be okay, let's just get through this, we'll deal with everything else later. And then when you are out of it, congratulate, reward yourself, reward others, tell everybody else who helped you out how amazing they are. And in that moment of negativity, they can find that positive. And in that positive, right? That's when the positive can come in, right? It's just when that negative is there. And I only know that from my own experience because I'd have to say, except for those moments of adventures and fun and accomplishment that did come across my path in my life, right? But for the most part, I was in those negative states. And without those joyous, happy, calming moments that I did have, I would have only been able to leave myself open to negative, which I did quite often. I am much better now. I think I'm absolutely terrific. I think I'm a A+ student in positivity. I really believe that. But, some of that comes from understandings that possibly might not have been mine. They might have been passed down, by my father. I really did have what I feel was a very close, loving, and guardian relationship. And having other aspects of negative in my life, those moments, joyous moments, those fun moments, those adventurous moments, maybe possibly not those moments of pride, right? That probably was not on the plate, not very much growing up, right? Not very much even in my adulthood. Like I said, I grew up pretty I sorry. I woke up to some of these ideas pretty late in life. I was in my 50s. I'm 64 years old now. I'm treading water, and I'm a lot better than I was. But it's in gratefulness to characters that I get these little tidbits, these little gold nuggets, these amazing insights. And, when I resonate with them, because I don't resonate with all of it, probably a very, very small fraction of it. But when I know it to be true and I put it to practice, because we do have to experience, we do experiment, and we do have to feel things out to see if they fit well in our own circumstances, in our own life, and in our own want for accomplishing, right? How it makes us feel. And like I said, I have no idea, how somebody who is really struggling is why we take so long to come out of grief, right? Grief is a tough one. And people will find that when they are in grief, look at the other aspects of your life, and you'll probably see the evidence of the negative. You certainly will. And even in that grief, if you could just possibly say, this too will pass, right? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Give yourself that permission to smile when you're sad, to relax and stop when you are overwhelmed, right? That you can walk away, right? You can come back and give an explanation, or in that moment give an explanation, but not in a negative yelling, right? Tit for tat, revenge, right? These emotions that will drag you down if you bite that fishing hook. And I was that person my entire life, you know. I could get sucked in, I could be triggered, but it wasn't that gaslighting. It wasn't that influence and manipulation of all the characters in my life who were trying to make some movement for themselves, right? And possibly might have been in a negative state themselves. And you know, when people are feeling bad, when they are agitated and negative and asking you, maybe not voicing, but they're just kind of handing their problems to you, handing the blame to you, asking you to hold it because it's unbearable for them. It's too much for them, right? And if you're a positive person, right? Right? And you have that gift that you can lighten a room, that you can lighten somebody's life, if even just for the moment in their own hurting, right? And because lots of times, like I said, they can't do it for themselves because they're just so stuck in their physical pain, their mental pain, grief, right? That they don't see the hope. They don't see the possibility of coming out of it. And that's why you guys hear me say all the time, you'll very, very rarely see me come in here and rah, rah. You probably never, you probably never will. You'll never, right? Even if somebody is an a hole, I would never say that to them, right? Maybe an old Cindy might have, right? But then again, what would have been the point in that negative state and in confronting somebody, right? You're only feeding that. And lots of times you are poked and you are triggered to give them that exact emotion, that exact energy, because right, the negative gobbles that up. The good doesn't want to eat that, but the negative will just chew that all up. But the negative will chew up and digest the positive just as much, right? It's just that it doesn't get to come across their path as often as they like, because right, negative only attracts negative. Negative doesn't attract the positive in somebody's life. And again, that was lessons that I had to learn. And again, you know, it's amazing people. This one, Jerry Weiss, I've been following him, oh my goodness, probably a half a dozen years now. Very warm hearted, very smart, knows exactly uh, the topics when it comes to dynamic families, narcissism, self love, oh my goodness, limiting beliefs. And only because he's had the experience himself. And those are the best leaders that, you know, not everybody wants to spew the garbage of their life, right? The pain of their life, the abuse of their life, even for myself, because, you know, there are characters in those stories. And in, you know, in spewing that, you're pulling in the characters into your life, right? And that for myself, right, I try really hard, but it's in our experiences that those lessons lay. And Jerry, I don't, I would hope you wouldn't mind me calling him Jerry, right? I could call him Mr. Weiss, but I've been with him for a long time, so I'm just going to call him Jerry. And I love that name, Jerry. You don't hear it very often anymore. It's a great male name. If anybody's having a baby out there, might think to consider it, right? But Jerry Weiss here, he's been on my platter of mentorship, right? And he doesn't even know me. He doesn't even know I exist, right? But I have to give credit where credit is due, because any any work that I've done, anything that I've accomplished in understanding and resolving emotional, mental, physical issues in my life, right? Again, in giving that credit, he could be having a very bad day, but he's putting out that positive for people. He's doing that whistle while you work, singing in the rain, right? It was the best of times, it's the worst of times. And if you give them that little bit of, I think it's respect. I really do. When you appreciate and you recognize the contribution, I am very grateful that I have been able to search out amazing, amazing souls out there that, have that experience in their own lives, and offer up lessons from those experiences, because that's how we relate to each other, right? I relate to him through the fact that possibly he went through the same thing I did, or something similar, right? And also because I've been with them for so long now, there's that trust built up, right? Because I get a sense. I'm not just sitting here and taking in a lesson. I'm feeling him out. I'm looking for the truths. I'm feeling the truths that are coming from him, but I'm feeling them out in myself. And that's something that's absolutely amazing about YouTube. Everybody is looking to be entertained, right? Everybody's looking to be entertained, but so few are actually searching out, actually, right? Taking that opportunity and, right, taking advantage of this age of AI learning to make movement. Wow. If I had not started when I did, I might have come to the end of my life, right? With only the negative. Still whistling while I work, right? Still dancing in the rain, being that positive person that I am, right? But at the same time, I wouldn't have been able to resolve. I wouldn't have, and especially when I'm somebody who believes that, Cindy's not coming back, but those other parts of me I believe are coming back. And it would be a shame if they came back into a situation, or, been able to, because, I feel that connection to those other parts of me. I feel that partnership. I feel those gifts. I feel every time I resonate with something as a truth, right? That's not me. That's those other parts of me. But I have that ability to delve into it, to kind of tear things apart and put it back together. And, for myself, it was, I always referred to myself like as a, what do you call those cameras that you stick to the trees out in the forest, wildlife cams, is that what they call them? And, this is how I feel I've always been, not knowing what I was done, but just taking it in like I was a camera, being a witness, but Cindy not being the witness, those other parts of me being the witness, right? Now, in that little bit of partnership that I have with myself, I understand how important it is to do that work, right? To really understand where I got things wrong, where I got things right, and to take a look at the other characters out in the world that are relatable to me in how I think and how I move and how I would like to move, and appreciate that even though Cindy might not ever get to meet Jerry Weiss, right? And maybe not Jerry Weiss, but in those other parts of him, those other parts of me, at some point down the road, have that connection, and in that moment have a recognition, and possibly, right, somebody that they can move down the path with, right? Maybe not forever, maybe just long enough to show their appreciation for what they did for Cindy, right, in a past life. But, and it's not to say that it was just in my life. Maybe Jerry Weiss has been doing this for lifetimes. Maybe those other parts of me, right? I'm not going to say Jerry Weiss, Jerry Weiss's other parts. Those other parts of me have been doing the exact same thing, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, right? And that's evolution, right? This is diversity. This is right, being determined in not being omitted from the, it's not the word I was looking for, but it'll have to do, being okay, how about left out in the possibilities for the future, right? Not just the future of the world, right? But the future of generations in even my own bloodline going down the road, right? And possibly not just my bloodline, maybe many, many bloodlines, considering, where those other parts of me have traveled in different lifetimes. I am not sure. We have not had that conversation, right? And I can ponder on that, but right, if it doesn't come across my path in the moment, I don't normally feel compelled to dive into it, right? Like I have enough priorities on the plate. Okay, let me have a sip of my coffee and we're going to go into a card. I hope you're doing amazing tonight, Eugene. Thank you so much for coming into my life. You're so awesome. You keep me company almost every single day, and I really appreciate that, right? Being a small channel, and right, being diverse in some of my ideas, that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and I don't think I need to be everybody's cup of tea, right? It's a table with a teapot, and if anybody wanted to join me like Eugene, right, we're just sitting here having a chit chat, enjoying a cup of coffee, not tea, sometimes tea. I like tea too. Okay, you guys, let's grab a card. Yesterday we had this word community. Wow. It comes it comes across my path a lot, right? And I believe, right, these other parts of me are searching out community. For Cindy herself, of course, we're all searching out community, right? We all want to feel like what we want to belong, right? And this is what yesterday's card was saying. And in community, it always offers up an opportunity to belong. It doesn't mean that it always works. Sometimes we're a little bit pushy in that. We could be irritating, right? Sometimes we're not on the same stream mentally, emotionally, physically, so we're not relatable to each other, even though our souls might love each other to death, if, right? As humans, if we're butting heads, again, it's only that negative that's going to invite negative into our lives, right? And who wants to be around that? Okay, you guys, let's get into a card. Now we're going to call it a week. Oh my goodness, this week went so fast. It really, really did. I sometimes have to look at the calendar that the weeks go so fast. I don't even know what day I'm on. But we are on Friday, so Saturdays I don't normally come in, but I will be here Sunday night for Chatters Live. If you've never come and hung out with us, I encourage you, right? I have an amazing, amazing crew there, and so sweet, so positive, and so supporting. And they yap more than I do, and I'm not lying. They are yappers. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very grateful for my crew. They have been good company for me. And just like you, Jean, here, very good company for me. Okay, here we go. Let's get a new card, a card that we haven't had yet. That would be amazing. There's lots of them in here that I haven't pulled yet. So let's just. Oh, what were we talking? This is something I talk about all the time. Movement is an action that gravitates to the result, right? It's those baby steps. It's in, right? Lots of us don't think that we have anything to contribute, right? Lots of times we see somebody doing something, we would absolutely love to do that, but it looks so hard, it looks so impossible. And, right, we do that little bit of negative talk that I can't do that, I could never achieve that, I could never be like them. Well, you don't really necessarily have to be like anybody except for yourself, but in that movement, right? If you just do, can you hear the wind? So crazy. I love it. Right? If you just start with the baby steps, right? Just put one foot in front of another, right? You want to lay on the couch and watch TV, but just get up, do something, go wash the dishes, go for a walk, benefit the dog. The dog's got to be walked anyway, so you're getting the chore out of the way, but at the same time you have an opportunity to connect with mother nature a little bit, right? Do a little bit of tree hugging, sit under a tree, lean up against a tree. I lean against trees all the time because I'm literally a tree hugger. I walk down the sidewalk, and if I see a tree, sometimes I'll just go up to the tree and just kind of put my arms around it, right? Usually just one arm, right? Because people are walking by and people say to me all the time, "Oh, it is a beautiful tree, isn't it?" Because they know exactly what I'm doing. And here in Winnipeg, in the early 1900s, they lined all the streets with elms, and beautiful Dutch elms. And some of our elms here are 300 years old. They're really old. 300 years is the maximum usually that the elms usually live, but we've slowly been cutting the trees down because we have a beetle that's been killing our elms, Dutch elm disease they call it. But our trees are absolutely just beautiful. Even just yesterday we had these little seedlings, and they're not planting new elms on the boulevards. If you go onto Google Maps, and you can go to satellite view, and just come right into Winnipeg and look at our streets. And if Google in their little cars that drive by have photographed the city, like say in the middle of summer or something, you can't even see the buildings. You can see the skyscrapers downtown and stuff, but you can't see the buildings. It just looks like wild forest absolutely everywhere, is because our elms are so tall, and they are old and ancient, and we're losing them. But yesterday I crossed the street to go to the grocery store, and we had seedlings, a little, not elms, they were little aspen trees that they planted, and they put a couple of sticks there and some strings so that they don't blow over the course of the winter. And it's been a pretty tough winter here in Winnipeg. We haven't had one of those for a few years. So I'm appreciating winter a little bit. I'll probably go out tomorrow and have a walk, right? Even if it is kind of crazy town. I have been enjoying my walks this week, but when it's really stupid crazy like this, I can bundle up, but that wind is not good. Like I said, if you're outside and you don't have your face totally covered, you're going to get home with pock marks from the sleet and the snow that pounds you in the face. But I held on to the branches of this little seedling. And how's your winter going? I know it's your first winter, right? Because it just got planted this fall on the boulevard. It didn't have much time to root before winter came. And so I'm just giving it little pep talks. Only a couple of months left, and spring will be back, and you'll have your leaves back. And just hold on. You're doing great. You're nice and solid. The strings, right? And give it a little bit of a pep talk, and then off I go, right? But when people notice, right? I live in a high rise, and that little seedling is just across the street. So I'm sure everybody's staring out their window at me and going, "What the hell is she doing?" Right? But I don't mind so much. I I I have to say I'm probably embracing my uniqueness, and anybody who's been with me for any length of time is probably recognizing that, I'm loosening up. I'm becoming less burdened by other people's ideas of me, and I'm not beating myself up, because those were just the voices of my my parents, my sisters, my coworkers, my managers and supervisors in, right? And just even strangers, right? That I meet along the way. Okay, so get back to this word movement. Movement is an action that gravitates to a result, right? And that is so true. But like I said, sometimes we don't find ourselves to be capable. You think I woke up to any of these ideas and think that I was capable? No. Not only did I not think I was not capable, I wasn't capable. I was clueless. I was frightened. I was in a negative state, right? Because that small door that opened up to me in that joy that I had in the moment, that allowed me to take in love, right? That gift that was offered to me, and I gobbled that up in a joyous moment, and it woke me up. But it only woke me up, and then I crashed right back into the old Cindy. Not only did I crash into the old Cindy, I crashed into something. I have no clue, but I understand better now. That is in the process of letting go of what doesn't serve us. And then, right? If you could just tell yourself, get off the couch, right? You don't need the remote control. Just get up and change the channel of the TV manually. Go for a walk, right? Wash the dishes. Get on that project, right? And even if it's just making the list of right, you got to go shopping. You're going to do a renovation and okay, let's get that list going, all the materials and have that all done. And then you could just check things off. I make lists all the time. And then I just highlight them off as I get them done. And I don't give myself any timeline because I do things in baby steps, understanding that it's not a rush. The idea is just to keep making that movement. And right from the time I woke up to some of these ideas to where I'm at now, all done in baby steps. And yes, right? More than likely, it's going to take a little bit longer, but the absorption of understanding will only benefit, right? You at some point. And it might be, right? On those last few days of your own time on this earth. But you know what? Those other parts of you are going to come back and they're going to have all those lessons. Every list that you highlighted off is going to be a resource. It's going to be a tool along your tool belt that they'll be able to come back and not be gaslighted, not be guilted and shamed, not be stifled in who they want to be, right? And be able to start moving, even if it's just in baby steps. And at that point, they'll understand it's just the matter of making that movement, and eventually you'll get there, right? And if I, right, could have my other parts come back in the next round and not find them in that same situation that I have, right? I say when we have been in lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. um, I think that I can attribute it to whistling while I work, right? Singing in the rain because it was the best of times and it was the worst of times, right? Knowing everything is going to be okay. Okay, you guys. Movement. Movement is an action that gravitates to the result, right? You're not going for that gold medal tomorrow, right? You're not going to the Olympics tomorrow. But if you want to go to the Olympics, start practicing, right? Right? Because if you don't take those actions, if you don't start on those baby steps, if you don't start training, right, there's no chance at all, right? In the baby steps, there's at least a chance. And just like Jerry Weiss, I know that from my own experience. Okay, you guys, have a great night. I'll see you Monday unless you guys want to come and hang out with us on Sunday night. It's a good time, an hour and a half live show, Chatters Live. We try to keep it light, but I could only be me. Okay, you guys. Thank you, Eugene, again. Thank you, everybody else, for popping into my live. If you come in and, later on, put your feet up, have yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. I hope you find whatever time that you offer up in sitting with this conversation that it might do you a little bit good. Okay, I'm going back to finish this interview that Jerry Weiss is having. Everybody, have a great night.